Hello. In this session, we'll outline a strategy to effectively evaluate capabilities and tailor a professional development plan for practitioners. We'll also step through how to create a plan and apply an inspect and adapt mindset to the framework. Please note, I'm saying practitioner is a way of covering all roles such as project, program, portfolio management, and even Agile and Scrum-specific roles such as product owner and Scrum Master. PMI is one standards body that supports the professional development of practitioners. And of course, there are many others around the world that have common objectives for assessing and developing talent. These groups often provide guidance as to the skills required of a practitioner to perform at a higher level of competence than without a meaningful framework. For example, PMI has a competency development framework to address the technical and leadership aspects of project management. In addition, the Talent Triangle expands the competency framework to include a third dimension, business strategy. Together, the three areas provide a well-rounded picture of the general management and leadership skills required in today's world. So with that said, let's walk through an example of how to apply the process. The following framework and principles may be applied to organizations to develop competent practitioners, or by professionals like yourself to manage your own professional development. In either scenario, this is a continuous process and not a one-time activity. So consider the development plan a living and breathing artifact used as a chart to plot your short-term, mid-term, and long-term direction. For example, in step 1, we'll define the assessment scope. The first stage used to evaluate competency or skills is to identify what's required. Requirements will determine the scope and should align to the objective of the assessment. Just like in anything you're evaluating, you want to make sure you have the correct focus for what you plan to assess. Part of identifying requirements is to also identify the appropriate assessment criteria used to evaluate competency and how the criteria will be measured. So in this stage, it's important to define what and how and tailor both to the objective. For example, if you're wanting to define competency as a portfolio manager, you'd create an assessment to evaluate skills related to portfolio management and not necessarily project management. Or if you're evaluating a Scrum Master, you should have a clear understanding of what the role is and how it can be evaluated to provide meaningful feedback. Otherwise, you run the risk of collecting data that doesn't fully align to what you're trying to measure, and the results may not be constructive as they should be. Let's talk a bit about the assessment criteria themselves. These are dimensions that will be measured. The assessment criteria can be in areas related to knowledge, performance, and personal behavior expectations. So let's explore these three dimensions a little bit more. Knowledge competence. The knowledge competency refers to what a person knows. For example, knowledge about program or portfolio management, or maybe Scrum roles, such as a Scrum Master or product owner. In other examples, knowledge is demonstrated by obtaining an industry certification. Performance competence. The performance capability refers to what a person is able to accomplish with knowledge. Evidence to measure this competence may be successful ability to establish and deliver a program or portfolio or bring a product to market. For example, a PM applying a methodology, a product owner creating a vision statement and roadmap, or a Scrum Master establishing a consistent cadence for his or her team are all competencies that can be measured related to performance. Personal competence. The personal competence includes behaviors, attitudes, and personality characteristics. Evidence of personal competence may be found in observing how an individual behaves while performing a particular role, such as a PM, a Scrum Master, or a product owner. For example, personal skills enable an Agile practitioner to effectively use knowledge and performance competencies in his or her day-to-day coaching of individuals or a team. Step 2 will evaluate the competencies of the practitioner. In this stage, the assessment methods are applied and the individual is measured against a set of defined criteria. So in this example, a 360-degree review is one way to evaluate competence, and a self-assessment is another helpful example. In the evaluation phase, it's critical to apply the right level of thoughtfulness when evaluating a skill or competency. Consistency and objectivity is vital because it provides value to the assessment, and a lack of appropriate rigor can create bias and lead to meaningless results. Having a process which is honest and repeatable is critical when evaluating competence. Now, once the assessment is complete, the third stage is to create and/or refine the development plan. The development plan is what you use to establish goals and competencies you'd like to strengthen, such as technical knowledge of an agile method and how to best implement Scrum or Kanban, or in an area of business acumen or a particular leadership skill like negotiation. Use the feedback gathered in step 2 to address your development needs or the needs of the individual. Not all areas should need the same attention. So not only reflecting on the feedback is important, but also prioritizing the constructive and actionable results is important for focusing on the most important signals. Now let's review ways to address development needs through either experiential, formal, or non-formal learning practices. Experiential learning is the act of learning by doing, through experience. Examples include on-the-job training, shadowing, and/or mentoring or coaching. Formal learning, on the other hand, is a more structured approach to education, such as, well, engaging in this learning series or attending a group training environment. Finally, non-formal learning is a method that occurs in a natural way outside the classroom, such as participating in social media discussions or being part of a community of practice. Applying a blend of all three should work well to help you develop abilities in areas that you intend to strengthen and grow into. Finally, step 4 is to implement and monitor your development plan. Once a plan has been established, it can be acted upon. So in terms of monitoring a development plan, once it's started, add checkpoints at regular intervals and share the progress with others as needed. This way, you'll stay on top of the results and can adapt the plan as needed. For example, if certain goals change, you can update the plan to align to the new goals in near real time. Of course, periodic reflection of progress against the plan is a good way to ensure you stay on course in terms of progress and direction. And when you want to pivot, adapting your plans to a new direction is an important activity to keep your development plan aligned with your new goals. Remember, learning is a lifelong journey which requires commitment and the ability to reflect and adapt. It's also a lot of fun. And with these tools in your arsenal, you're well positioned to improve competencies that enable your success, regardless of the type, size, or complexity of the efforts you'll lead and manage in the future.